turn it over to Gavin. So Gavin, you're going to run. Paul, you can pass to Gavin the controls. And Ricardo, myself, and Oliver, we can turn off our cameras, and we'll come back in and question Gavin after his presentation. So I'll stay with you for 1 second, Gavin, just to make sure that you're good on the controls. But is it moving well? You're in control.
I'm in control, and I would like just to add to Oliver that as an academic, academics, his final comment, we have a word for it. It's called inseparability, which is when you cannot disguise the product from the service, and it's so true. And unfortunately, the airline industries don't often understand that they are a service company, and they're not selling products. Thinking on the theme of academics, some of you may be old enough to have studied Michael Porter, and certainly in the 1980, when he wrote Competitive Advantage, he talked about cost leadership, and in 2022, we still talk about Porter's competitive advantage. And Porter was quite clever because he said there can only be one cost leader. So who is our cost leader? Well, in Europe, we probably say Ryanair. Ryanair never published their CASK, but kind of going around it, we kind of learned that just before the pandemic, Ryanair were about 3.2 euro cents per kilometer, and Wizz, which is pushing hard to be the best cost leader to take the strategy of Porter, was about 3.37 euro cents. So if some of you in the US try to convert that from miles to kilometers and from dollars to euros and see whether or not Spirit and Allegiant, I don't think they'll be as low as either of these airlines. And for those of us in Asia, I don't think Spring Airlines will be anywhere near these two either. So let's probably say these are the best. And interestingly, what are they doing to try and win the game to be the cost leader and try and prove a little bit wrong what has been said by Ricardo? Is that Wizz is betting on more seats is more potential ancillaries. So in their latest major purchase at the Dubai Air Show, they've now gone out and bought a significant number of A321neos, where they're putting 239 people on board the aircraft. And our friends in Dublin have gone and bought the MAX 200, where they're putting 198, 199 on their aircraft. So we have a difference of 42 seats. So the differentiation here and cost leadership is that I've got 42 more seats than you to try and sell an ancillary. So, and obviously the cost of these aircraft per kilometer is not that different. So if you've got 42 more things to sell than your friend, maybe you'll be the winner in the cost leadership strategy of Michael Porter of 1980. That is one way to think about our industry. And if you look at that in a little bit more light, you can see that during the last 3 years before 21, the levels of ancillaries that were coming from Wizz is far greater than that which was coming from Ryanair. So if I've got 42 more seats, maybe my vision is that I can get more people to buy the things that our previous speakers have been saying maybe we'll not continue to keep buying, because that's the way we want to differentiate and that's the way we think we can win. And interestingly, if you look at how much people are potentially spending, again, it feels as if the client with Wizz is more happy to keep paying more money for things that allow them to travel. Interestingly, in both of those last slides, if anybody is over in the India region, why is Indian low-cost airlines with such small numbers when it comes to ancillaries? That we'll come back to. So with that and with what was discussed previously, I'm trying to look a little bit different and pick up a little bit in what's going on now. And so what's next? If you can't get to be cost leader, so if you're not Ryanair or Wizz, if you're another airline on this webinar, and you know you can't get down to those euro cent CASK of your competitors, why are you fighting them? What are you doing to try to differentiate? And in all of this, let's call it post-pandemic people talk about leisure travel booming and everybody wants to be on holiday. And if you look at the vision of low cost, it really grew in two areas. One was VFR, friends and relatives going, if that was with Ryanair starting Dublin, London, or Wizz Air starting Poland, Luton, there was a vision that you were taking families on holiday or meeting people, or you were doing the north-south strategy. So again, here in Europe, that would be Northern Europeans like myself, holidaying down in Southern Europe for better weather. So this mentality of a low cost is that leisure is in our DNA, or our passengers look at us as if it's leisure. And Ricardo made a very interesting comment saying anyone can sell travel. Well, if anybody can sell travel, why don't airlines try and sell packages? Why don't airlines, and I'm taking Ricardo's vision, let's not call ancillaries, is this not a new business model? Why not try and package a little bit better than we're doing already? So to try and understand that, I did a little bit of research about what some of the airlines are trying to do to sell holidays as a way of, let's call it an ancillary, making money by doing something that's not core. Well, going over to the OTAs, they've been doing this model of what we could call dynamic packaging, where they own nothing. They managed to have it linked to everybody else that owns something and put it all together and made money. More money probably than those people that sold the independent parts to the whole. Synergy greater the whole, greater than the parts, sum of the whole, all of what we know. So this idea that the OTAs had really understood selling packages, they just called it dynamic because they didn't own anything. Why have airlines been a little bit reluctant to go down the line of trying to create a more holiday experience through the way that they position? Let's have a quick look at what some of these airlines are doing. So, you know, Ryanair, as I've said, they're very, very good in what they're doing, but they sell seats. They do sell car hire. If you click on that button, I obviously can't because I'm on this, it will take you to a third-party site. And if you click on the hotels, it will take you booking.com. So what does that mean is that you've just kind of given another company the rights to your customer. So it's a Ryanair customer going to booking.com to make a hotel booking. That's one example. Go to the Wizz, the same. I mean, it's as if they've copied each other. So they're fighting on CASK, they're fighting on, are they going to sell flight, hotel, or car? Wizz seem to do a deal here because you get 5% discount if you book on their hotel. So you get better discount on probably on Wizz booking a hotel than if you go to booking.com because they're giving you a discount. Again, it's kind of, why are they not wanting to be a little bit more adventurous in packaging? Why am I giving the opportunity to somebody to sell somebody else's product to my customer? Because remember, I'm on the website of the airline, not the third-party company. You're going to send me to their site when I click on that button. More, you know, let's go across or over to the US. Frontier is doing very well. And in one of the earlier comments from Chris, you know, these, I'm not that familiar with Frontier, but I know they have this, I think it's called the Den Club or something, where you pay up front in the year, and then every time you make a booking, you get 2 fares online. So there's, if you're in the Den Club, you pay $50. If you're a non-Den Club, you pay $75, and it changes, of course, with dynamic pricing. But the reality is they're trying to tie you into a club on future bookings of seats. Nothing here about holidays. So that's Frontier. We do have one here. Spirit, out of Fort Lauderdale, I think. They do sell. Look, they sell vacations, packages. So I went behind the scenes. So I tried to do a little bit of research. And where you go right at the bottom of a website, you find little bits that you never normally go to. Well, obviously they have to have disclaimers, yeah. And hey, who's doing this? It's a third-party company. So you're selling here holidays via an OTA. So Spirit, one of the biggest low-cost airlines in the US with probably millions and millions of hits every day, is basically sending people to buy a holiday via an OTA, okay? And I went to Southwest, and the same thing. I had to cut and paste the 2 screens. The front screen of Southwest Vacations tells me you can have a vacation, and then again, when you go down to the bottom, click on the button, disclaimers, etc. It's the Apple Leisure Group. that is the vacations company that powers Southwest. So once again, you're putting people into another company's business model. Why is these airlines not with their own? And to make examples across the other side of the spectrum, Indigo just launched, this was I think 2 weeks ago, big launch in the Indian press, and you even see here, I don't know how big your screen is, a bit small for me, but it says new. So they have this project called Easyjet Holidays, new project. It's powered by India's biggest OTA. And then when I went to the OTA's website, Make My Trip, I can buy tickets with Indigo's competitor called Airasia. So here I am partnering with an airline to sell a holiday, and then when I go to the OTA's website, it's selling my competitor. So okay, I know distribution is very important. You want to be everywhere, but it kind of feels as if we don't know what to do with holidays. But then what got me interestingly, during the pandemic, there's a low cost out of Luton, United Kingdom, that launched something that was really what I've been trying to highlight. They created a third-party company called Easyjet Holidays, a full tour operator, basically. And interestingly, what they've said, it's owned and managed within the company, but it has its own P&L with its own leadership team. And the whole vision here was to put hotel, flight, baggage, and transfer, which is what the OTAs did when I highlighted before with dynamic packaging, within the airline. So here you've got an airline that finally said, why don't we want to also sell holidays? Not holidays through an OTA that sells our competitors on seats, but a company that is our own. Why would an airline want to become a tour operator or become, let's call it, a holiday company? Is because then they can try to then understand that a tour operator is not an airline. The mentality of a tour operator is about the right contracting with a hotel, having the right partners to support your strategy. It isn't about saying, I'm an airline, click here to make a booking with a hotel. It might be my site, but it's in the booking.com platform. No, this is our platform, created internally, and delivers a holiday. So this got me thinking, why are they doing it and the others are not doing it? What is it about Easyjet that makes it different than Spirit, Frontier, Ryanair, Wizz, or Indigo, as an example? And interestingly, what they've just announced as we're coming out of the pandemic, or whether UK's been coming out of the pandemic, they'll actually now sell holidays, let's call them holidays, in travel agents. Well, low-cost airlines and travel agents was like scum many years ago. Oh, I don't want to sell in a travel agent. Oh, no, I'm not going to put my inventory in the distribution channel in the GDS, because why would I want to do that? You've now got a low-cost airline company with a tour operator selling holidays in travel agents. We're going backwards. So we talk about innovation, differentiation. We're going back to what we used to do. Why are they doing it? Because they probably see some benefits. What are the benefits? What are the takeouts before I pass it across to the team? Well, the first thing, let's be honest, is low-cost airlines. If it's Easyjet, Ryanair, Frontier, Spirit, Allegiant, whoever, wow, you get passengers, you get people, you get footage. How do you take that footage that normally buys seats and tries to now buy something a little bit more? Not selling a seat and a sandwich, selling a seat. No, sell you a holiday. Let's try to change. So we're one-stop shopping. You might buy a trip with me on a seat-only project, and then you buy me with a holidays component. So how to try to position yourself as a one-stop shop more than just selling seats. How do you then try to convert the way you sell as an alternative to sending them to Expedia, that's then going to take your seats and basically make money from you? So ways to try to go around that. And of course, it was interesting. I looked at London Faro, obviously here in Portugal. And in July, where EasyJet have got six flights a day, 7 flights a day, some of the fares, seat-only fares, were about £250, £300. Interestingly, what they put me on when I put in London Algarve, which is his name, it's not the airport, you put in the name of the destination, the Algarve, with a hotel, it gave me the flight, which was actually the lowest on the seat-only offer, Because of course what it's doing is trying to push the holidays passenger to those flights where there's still a lot of inventory to sell, protecting some of the inventory where you've also got a lot of seat-only customers because of people who might have their own second homes down the line, to then book and protect. So where you've got multiple flights per day, you can actually use the holidays to try and shift people, because when you book a holiday, you don't think about the flight times. It's at the end of the experience. When you book a seat, the flight times are the first thing you look at. So the mentality changes when you buy a holiday. So to conclude, and I hope I've not overrun, 3 things. Sell more to your existing prospects by trying to build up packages within the airline experience. If you are a tour operator, where the tour operators make their money is the kickbacks from the hotels and the volumes that they get from the hotels, or the deals they get because they give volume to the hotelier. So now all of a sudden, if I'm Easyjet, as Easyjet Holidays, I'm the contracting manager going to the group of hotels in Portugal or in Greece and saying, I can bring you thousands and thousands of customers. What's the deal for me? What's the kickback for me? And I can then pass that back to the group. So you can get the deal from the hoteliers and the kickback that you're not getting if you're sending your customers to booking.com. They've got the deal inside their platform, not inside your project. And third, there's this great project called Air Services Development and Route Development. Tourism boards, generally are government, funding is available. And there's been this kind of vision that airlines and airports talk to each other. And let's see if let's get the airport to go to the tourism board and see if you can get me some money to bring a flight that's got little relevance to the destination, probably takes as many people outbound than brought people in. If you're a tour operator, you go to the destination and you partner and you say, Mr. Tourism Board, let's work together. I can drive people to your destination through my tour operator that just happens to be an airline. And that's a way that we can get marketing support, and we can tie that marketing support not from planes landing in an airport, which is where we are with a lot of this air service development, but if you're bringing people that stay in a hotel, that hotel is the multiplier effect to the destination, because those hotels are paying IRS, Social Security, they're employing people. So the tourism board's KPI is not passenger arrivals, it's bed nights. And who brings bed nights? Are tour operators, not aircraft. Aircraft bring people, and we don't know where people stay. So in a nutshell, think a little bit differently. Why has Easyjet taken this holy grail and done something that nobody else seems to be doing? Are they right or are they wrong? I'll leave it there.
Okay, so let me ask Oliver and Ricardo to turn on their cameras. And I'm going to start off, there's some questions, and you got audience, keep the questions coming in, but I'm going to start, Oliver, if you're there. I'm going to start with a comment, actually, a couple comments from Jay Sorensen. Just read them, and then we'll go to the questions. But Jay was very complimentary, Gavin. He said very good and compelling commentary. And so I don't know if you know him from IdeaWorks, but he sent in a comment that I think is worth reading. It said, about the numbers, Ryanair traditionally underreports baggage revenue. Indian carriers have spotty records regarding ancillary revenue, and for them, the actual results are higher. The yearbook, which I believe is the Ancillary Revenue yearbook on IdeaWorks website, I think it's ideaworkscompany.com. The yearbook publishes what is disclosed. And
I use that in reference, so thanks, Jay. I use his work for that.
So he said the most accurate numbers appear to be those with the highest rates of revenue. So just comments from Jay. So a bit of skepticism from the audience, to be honest with you. So I think the whole panel can take this one. Airlines struggle to service customers buying a flight ticket. So servicing a package increases complexity multifold, and to be honest, the right technology is not in place to support this. So let me, you just spoke. I know Ricardo feels strongly on this one, so I'll go to Ricardo first. So is the technology there to support what Gavin just said?
No, not really. and also, it's not for this talk, but I think that with Gavin we could go much further, actually. But that's not the purpose of this webinar. I will say though, and this is a question also for Gavin. This morning, I got a new assignment from one of the two largest integrators in the world. And the assignment is for the head of corporate strategy, global. And the assignment is about 3 words: better, not bigger. Work it out. So essentially is by improving a business model, modernizing it to stay ahead of the commoditization trend in that sector, which applies in our sector as well. And by becoming better, not bigger. What essentially you're saying is we should, with your model, become bigger, extend into potentially into other areas that we used to call cross-selling in the 80s and 90s before we started using other terms like ancillary. But the question is, with staffing issues as well, which other than technology, we have a lot of staffing issues. So do airlines have the time to focus on this area? And do hoteliers, who are increasingly becoming better at marketing themselves directly to the end consumer, where there's a lot of premiums to be had these days, do the hoteliers have time to go sit down with an airline?
Gavin, you're on mute.
No, I'll just on that latter point, you would create a contracting team, and why would a hotel not be interested in talking to an airline that has potentially got a much bigger hit per day than what would be a hotel booking platform, being honest? So it would be naive of a hotel company to say, I don't want to speak to, let's say, Easyjet or Ryanair, because at the end of the day, what you're not speaking to them as an airline, you're speaking to them as a representative of a hotel contracting team that actually has behind them a bigger footage on their site than you would have in many other platforms. So I think that the respect from the hotel would come straight away. On the staffing issue, yes, I think the general staffing, it's the vision is about adding complexity, let's call it complexity, by adding product to be able to then try and differentiate from the others. And that's why I used those first couple of slides. Who can, you said both of yourself, there can only be one cost leader. So are we just fighting more for the same with the same project? And is this a way for one airline to be a little bit different than the others? That's what I wanted to get across. It's not that I'm pushing the model, what Easyjet is right or wrong. The idea that I highlighted the difference between Wizz and Ryanair, and it feels as if that seat difference, and when I've heard Ryanair speak in other forums, they do talk about their seats. The more seats they have, that is their difference. That is their difference.
One key thing I would add though is, other than the OTAs that are out there that are also investing in technology and still have to perfect the overall user experience on the platforms. So the issue is essentially, what would an airline do better to offer this to its competitor airline, competing with the same rooms at destination? And what would you do better than an OTA that is also active in that geographical?
You should hope, and just 1 second, you should hope that the benefit is that the airline can indirectly subsidize its seat to have a better package than selling it via Expedia. Let's be honest. The whole point of packaging is to hide the price of the fare. And if you're fighting on seat only, it's the reverse. If you're not lower seat, you're probably not going to win. So the whole point of not showing the fare is that you try to then make the money from the hotel, the kickbacks, the destination support, to put a package below the OTA, and then internally revenue generate how many seats you're allowed on each aircraft, that you could put that as spillage, that you're not selling them, to allow indirectly, if you're on an Amadeus full content agreement, I can't sell anybody any lower. Well, I'm on my own, so nobody knows, right? What I can give internally to sell my own package.
let me call it. There's a comment almost very similar to Ricardo's that I'll come to next, but let me call in Oliver first. Oliver, how do you feel? Is the technology in place today to do what Gavin just proposed, in your opinion? So he did get some pushback from the audience. What do you think?
What about the risk? So if I'm an airline and I sell a golfing experience with a flight ticket, a hotel, a round of golf, and then maybe even a new driver from the pro shop under NDC, and then the day that the passenger actually arrives on the Algarve or St Andrews or wherever else it is, it's pouring with rain and there is no round of golf, so the passenger flies home. How is the airline then? How does the airline's liability change for the whole package? Because they haven't sold a flight anymore. They've sold a round of golf, but the round of golf didn't happen. So can the passenger claim a full refund? How will those liabilities work out, Gavin?
Well, it would then, from, if you go to the bottom of the websites, and I'm sure you'll see on Easyjet, it's ATOL. So let's not get into technical details on a global, but ATOL is the Association of Tour Operator Licenses for the UK. So Easyjet Holidays is a fully bonded ATOL member. So actually you're booking. So if Easyjet Airline went bankrupt with an Easyjet Holidays customer, the British government would actually have to bring the Easyjet Holiday customer home and not the seat-only Easyjet customer, because the tour operator is ATOL registered.
Who pays if the round of golf is rained off?
So,
well, that would be on insurance. No, that's a technical detail of a tour operator and its insurance liability.
Oliver, let me push back on you, Oliver.
But the question for the audience, in each of your countries, you have to become a tour operator? You have to have a tour operator license. You can't just start selling.
Oliver, why 12 years on? NDC should have answered this question before IATA and its member airlines ever launched NDC. The question to your answer is not resolved. In 12 years on, it's unacceptable that NDC doesn't. You're pointing out a problem of the industry to me that it just doesn't make sense, right? In my opinion.
It's very weird, and I don't know how with all the money that's been spent on this stuff and all the people who've been looking at it, how can such a basic point have been overlooked?
But here's another. You guys are spurring tons of questions at the moment, but here's a very basic one. I think we'll start with Gavin, and it was the one that sort of ties to Ricardo's question before. So the person says that they love your views and opinions presented by all three of you, but they have a really basic question. Why would anyone think of buying anything other than a ticket from an airline? So it sort of goes to Ricardo's question.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a golden answer to this, because the airline is the gatekeeper of travel. If you want to go across the Atlantic, you can go by sea. That is an option. You might even be able to drive, all across Russia and then go a short distance by sea to Alaska. Who knows? But basically, the only realistic option is to fly. So the airline, you don't have to stay in a hotel. You can stay in a campsite. You don't have to eat meals in a restaurant. You can buy food from the supermarket. But the flight is compulsory. And so the airlines, being the gatekeepers of travel, I think are in a great position to offer these sorts of bundles to travelers, because they are something that every traveler has to buy. And so why not capture them at the same time to sell a holiday as well? The whole golf
I completely disagree, because the airline is one of many airlines that can get you there, and that's not the starting point. And it's one of the things that I've argued last month as well, is that for at least 80% of the people, the departure is not the issue, but the arrival. And it's the arrival and the destination and the experiences that they have been influenced to be interested in that matters. So I believe that the people that figure out how to connect best with customers and the experiences they seek and work their way backwards can then work with airlines to figure out which one will get them their best. And then the in-flight product, yes, becomes a product for the transportation part, but everything else, it's the same with conferences. I don't want to figure out trial and error what time I have to leave to arrive at a certain time. I want to know which flight I have to take to get me there so I can be at my conference at 10 a.m. And that's how I plan my trips. But we can't even do that on simple airline booking engines today.
So this is good. You guys are your disagreement is sparing lots of comments and questions, so that's good. But I'm going to go to Gavin. This is sort of something because someone really questioned your basic. I think they didn't get your pitch, because they're basically asking what's different from what you pitched, Gavin, from a traditional vacations department of an airline. And they give the example of American Airlines Vacations or Delta Vacations. So it's probably an American airline.
They're outsourced, so you don't control. You don't make money out of it. All you're doing is getting a pay per click, yeah, or agreed. You're giving. So when I click on American Airlines Vacations, I'm actually going to a third-party company that does everything that Ricardo highlighted. They will do the contact center. They will have done the contracting with the hotels. So basically, what you've done is you've sent an American Airlines customer to a third-party company that's booked a holiday through their site. It might have American Airlines Vacations logo, but it's run as a third-party company. So what you're not getting as the airline is the deals from the hotels coming yourself, because it's the tour operator that's gone to the hotels to get the deals, and they've come to you and said, look, you've got all this demand. How can I get hold of your passengers? Oh, here you go, take them. What the other model I showed was we went the other way. This company said, actually, we'll do that. We'll create the tour operator. We'll have a license. We'll have a contracting team. We'll go to the destinations and we'll get rooms on our command. And then we'll sell it. But what we have to have is a contact center, which airlines normally do have. Maybe that they're not as good as other contact centers if that's an issue, but normally an airline has a contact center. So that should help. Now you put people there to handle calls coming from the people who booked a package and not just a seat. So the difference between a vacations outsourced and a vacations insourced is that the airline can then, through this third party, get the deals with the hotels, get kickbacks from the hotels, and go to destinations and get support from the destinations to build packages to their destination. So what you're really doing is you're insourcing what you've now outsourced, if that's the best way to think about it.
Yep. So by the way, my appointment canceled on the hour, so I can stay over if you guys, there's a ton of questions and we can use it as a, so we're good, Paul. Here's another comment. It says, this is for all of the panel. Airlines don't know enough about their customers' travel needs to create relative new products and services beyond flying. That should be the first step. Acting like an OTA will require significant technical, human, and process investments. So,
I completely agree with this. The idea that passengers are not just numbers on a spreadsheet, but real, living, breathing human beings is one of my passions in the industry. You know, whenever I work with an airline, I try and really prioritize that. And just when I see travel packages being sold to me as a frequent traveler, I see the logic breaking down. So here's an example of this. When I'm traveling on business, I'm not paying for the flights personally. The company that employs me is. And that company is a member of the British Airways On Business scheme, which isn't just BA, it's Iberia, American Airlines too. And that's supposed to give the company points for my travel, as well as me personally getting my Avios from the Executive Club, which is British Airways' loyalty program. And I don't understand why, when I buy a business trip through BA Holidays, paying for the flight and the hotel together, my company doesn't get On Business points, because surely as a business traveler, I need a hotel as well as a flight. Why wouldn't the airline want to reward the business paying for the flights as well as the traveler? I see that type of logic fundamentally breaking down between the different silos in the organization, and it's almost as if they don't talk to each other. And I think that as an industry, the airlines who can really take a step back and think less about technical processes, less about systems, and really imagine their passengers as living, breathing human beings, will be in the best position to offer the products and services that people want to buy. Would I spend more money with British Airways if I could earn On Business points through the loyalty through BA Holidays? Absolutely, I would. They're leaving money on the table, and I go through the hotel zone portal instead.
That's a good point you mentioned about, a lot of my thinking was more for the low cost, just because the way we were discussing ancillaries, and generally the ancillaries have been more with the low cost vision than maybe with the traditionalists. But interestingly, maybe one of the challenges in the question is that as the low cost doesn't really have a relationship scheme, Frontier has Den clubs. I don't know what Den club, what you collect in that, but I certainly know from my former days working with BA, my word, that data, that they had some powerful data back in the 90s. So if a traditional airline with a loyalty program can then really work that and push that then to support the holidays experience, is that an opportunity for the traditionalists to differentiate by going down this model, potentially more than the low cost that don't have the loyalty program to give the data?
We're talking about selling holidays, but why is it limited to just holidays? Why is it not the full selection of every possible travel that everyone might need? People do go on holiday. I love to go on holiday. I need a hotel when I go on holiday. I need a hotel when I travel for work. You need different things when you travel for different reasons. Well, I think surely the airlines should tailor their packages to address every traveler, right?
Yeah, and go back 30, 40 years, airlines owned hotels, SAS and Radisson, they owned them, and and then of course everybody sold everything off, and there was a days in BA, BA wanted to buy everything. I was talking about buying cruise ships at one point. Everybody wanted to own the travel. Look at TUI, pre-pandemic, the TUI group, the way that with TUI Fly, with Rio Hotels, and the fact that they're differentiated, because what TUI basically said was, when you go on holiday, why should you end up in a hotel where a Thomas Cook customer would be? So they had special hotels built by investors, which were branded as TUI. You flew on a TUI aircraft, you booked in a TUI shop, and after the pandemic, the first thing TUI have done is selling off. TUI Flies being leased back, Rio is going out, and they want to go dynamic, because what does TUI have is they own the consumer. Why own the hardware if you own the consumer?
I think that the dirty little secret of our industry is that nobody wants to buy a flight. Why would anybody want to spend their money on a plane ticket? Nobody's interested. What they are interested in is the things that the flight enables: the travel experience, the holiday, the time with your kids, the time with your family, meeting business associates, signing deals, exploring interesting places. That's what the airline enables, and that's the only reason people buy plane tickets. But everybody resents every single penny they give to the airline. If the airline can offer happiness instead of misery, then all the consumers out there will be glad to give us their money.
So this is exactly the point, Oliver. That's why I was saying, and also increasing the profits. That was a huge point. Is we need to focus on true demand, not derived demand, which means we need to be able to sell and deliver experiences, be relevant to people in their lives, even if it doesn't involve a trip or a transportation using an airplane.
Yeah,
it's a completely different perspective.
Airasia in Malaysia are creating some sort of airasia.com, and they just want to own leisure. That's it. We want to be the leaders of leisure. We don't want to sell flights.
This is really reflecting the reality of how consumers behave. Because when I, as a consumer, have a choice about going to Paris for the weekend or staying at home, I don't just have a choice between Paris and the weekend and staying at home. I'm also choosing between going to Paris and the weekend and all the things I can do at home. Going to the cinema, going to a restaurant, maybe buying an Xbox or whatever else it might be. And I think that that's the thing which Airasia is enabling. They're tapping into the whole ecosystem of the prosperous middle class, and they'll be earning a share of almost every ringgit that's spent in the economy.
Is it because they can't make money on the airline? Not negative, because of what I've showed with this.
I think they can make money
of the cost leader strategy.
Because they're such a powerful brand, why would they not take the money from other things as well?
Which is what I highlighted with why will low-cost airlines want to send people to third-party companies to book a holiday.
All right, here's a question from the audience that I think it ties into what you're talking about a little bit. This person is questioning the whole model, Gavin, because they're saying that basically OTAs don't have great margins, return on investment. So why do we want to copy that model? So their question, in other words, you know, if we want to be rich, we don't work and travel, right? Like, do OTAs really have a great margin?
As well, the problem from an OTA is that they've got the biggest cost in the trip is the flight, yeah. And so what an OTA is not able to get is the deal from the airline, the better that the airline can give it itself. Let's be honest. So that's the biggest component of a trip generally is the flight. So what that then means is if I'm selling other people's products, which is what I'm doing as an OTA, the biggest component, I actually have the biggest challenge in getting lowest fare. So when it then comes to the hotel, I've really got to push the hotel as much as I can to be able to then hopefully discount to go below somebody else. If the airline can do that themselves, if the airline can say, okay, on that flight, we can allocate 10 seats, let's say at a margin that they want to create for themselves because they're losing on their own P&L, they're not putting them in the system. Those 10 are then allocated to the holidays project, let's call it, and then with the deals that you can get from the hoteliers, you can sell it, hopefully at a price that gives you a better margin than what the OTA has been able to do, because they don't own the inventory, which is the biggest part of the trip, which is the flight.
I think we're talking about, I mean, we're looking at all these operational aspects and some technicalities, but Chris, to your point, I just want to highlight what I truly believe is that it's not about content anymore. There's too much noise, there's too much choice. People even talk about choice stress, not only in supermarkets, but online too. So this is why I've been focusing heavily on how we need to improve that aspect. It's not about the content. But anyway, it's for another event that I'm sure we will do because I think it's important to share some of these things and how we're doing it in practice. But content, I mean, Gavin, you bring an very interesting and important opportunity, and I think the real way it works is by working with companies like have been very successful, like Destination Canada. What they have done, working with Mark Ross Smith and with his loyalty company, are phenomenal, and they take a more holistic approach, and working together absolutely helps destinations and everybody benefits. It's a different approach. There's also not much room for abuse and conflicts of interest. I think that's kind of an extension of what you were saying, and there are definitely opportunities, but the way we present it is something we really need to work on while we continue to figure out the platforms we need in order to become much more savvy around customers and not about the offers that we're trying to sell.
Yeah, because it's not just about selling cheap holidays. Let's be honest. You've got to provide as good as what a tour operator, let's call it an independent tour operator, has been doing for years. Really giving that consumer an opportunity to feel that it's been tailored and not just saying, okay, we're a low-cost airline, let's sell low-cost holidays. No, it's not. And interestingly, what the Easyjet product was showing is that you're not put on a bus. I'm taking from them. You're not put on an orange bus that takes you to the hotel. It's done in small transfers. So that they're trying to move away from this mindset of the 80s where 200 people arrived on a charter, 50 people were put on one bus that took them to hotels, 50 went on another bus to a hotel. No, you're trying to create this belief that it's within the group. It's living the values of the airline, and it's not about making it feel. It's not a low-cost holiday. No, for sure. It's got to be seen a different way.
One of your points, Gavin, was very interesting for me, which is you said that in the traditional OTA/charter model, the cost of the flight is the most expensive part of the trip. But isn't actually the problem that one of the opportunities here that actually it's the other way around? I think there's a big market out there for people who will spend as little as possible on the plane ticket, so they will buy whichever airline is cheaper, even to save $10 or $20, but they will think nothing of spending $5,000 on the hotel. And that's a huge opportunity for airlines, because if they're receiving $100 net from these people who are then spending $5,000 on the rest of the trip, if the airline can earn 10% commission on that, they're multiplying their revenue by 5 or 6 times.
Yeah,
to
you're
your point,
absolutely right.
I have a good anecdote to what Oliver just said. I just helped my brother and sister-in-law take their kids to Disney, right? And not only was the hotel more than their flight, the Disney tickets were more than their flight.
Yep.
So they had two parts of their trip that were more expensive and more of the focus. They didn't care how they got there; they just wanted to get there cheap.
And
they
that's a
spent
fantastic example because everybody knows what the value of going to Disney World is. You get to meet Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck, and that's cool. When you go on a plane, you get to sit in a tube for 3 hours. Why would you want to spend money on that?
Excellent point. So with that, I'll give each of you your final points. We'll start with Oliver. What's your takeaway from today? What did you learn or want people to remember from today's webinar?
Huge opportunities to earn revenue from bundling the travel services together. I don't think it should be limited to just flights, hotels, and rental car. We need to get really creative to unlock the value. If I knew that the airline was going to be supplying me with everything I need for my business trip and make it very easy for me to seal the deal when I arrive and meet my client, I would. I personally, I'm sure would, and many companies out there would spend a lot of money on that. I think the opportunities need to be explored beyond the holidays and flights package alone to include business and all other reasons, pilgrimages and all other reasons for travel. I think there's a lot of opportunities out there. As Ricardo said, there's only one dominant player in search, and there's probably only a market out there for 1, 2, or perhaps 3 airline platforms. For the audience running airlines out there, will it be your platform? You're going to have to make that happen, and that's exciting.
Ricardo, what's your takeaway from today?
Yeah, I agree with Oliver, and obviously we've been writing about it. And so what I like to say is that I agree with Gavin in terms of the area that you are exploring. There are many opportunities. I think the way you're presenting it also raises a lot of challenges in today's context. So what I'm essentially saying is that yes, there are opportunities in this area, but it has to be executed very differently, and very differently than how it's attempted today. And interestingly, Oliver and I on our blog are actually starting a series on the reinventing tour operating, which is completely beyond the conventional tour operating.
So
and
what is your, can you tell the Substack, how do people find it?
It's revman, so revman.substack.com. I think you'll find it very interesting, Gavin. It touches on some of the things you highlighted, but expands a lot beyond that. Because I've been struggling, and as some people know, that years ago I worked for a tour operator based in Montreal, Quebec, Transat, and for years I've been advocating that there is an opportunity for this model to reinvent itself, but they have to do it very rapidly. And what I'm saying is absolutely there are opportunities. The way you present it today is challenges also in staffing it and getting it on the corporate agenda, but it's absolutely got my support to continue to expand on it, and we're going to help add some content to that, in fact. So follow us on regarding that, I would say.
Okay. And Gavin, so you gave the presentation today. What do you want people to remember?
Thank you for the opportunity. I'd say it was more, I go back to my first slide. There can only be one cost leader. And if you're on that, I've been a CCO of an airline, so I know exactly what's happened. And I wasn't low cost, so and I lost money. So one way is to think you've got to start looking differently. And they say, why is Easyjet gone this way and the others haven't? Have they got something that nobody else has realized, or are they on a hiding to nothing? It's just an interesting analogy when you then look across. And I just started to think, yeah, at the end of the day, you can't, which was what we said at the start, you can't just keep milking the same customer with seat only projects. So you've got to look a bit differently. If it's Airasia going out and creating a .com site to sell travel, or if it's a low-cost airline having to sell holidays. But it's got to think a bit differently. Don't just think about milking those, I think it's a day of university, was it Boston Box cash cow? You can't keep milking more the ancillaries.
Excellent. So, and thank you to you also. My takeaways are to thank you three. Encourage the audience to look at the names there and go ahead and find you guys on LinkedIn and link with you. And then I have some upcoming events. So the loyalty and revenue management on the 10th and 12th of May, that's with Oliver. And we have some great speakers. And then cargo payments is with Ricardo, a little bit different from today's today's subject. But cargo has a lot more room for innovation than the passenger side, so we're going to be tackling some of that in a cargo conference, and it's getting quite a lot of interest because there's not a lot of cargo innovation events out there. So check out those 2 events. You can use the QR code there to find them. Link with these guys on LinkedIn, and we'll see you at a future webinar. So thank the audience, thank the speakers, and see you in a future webinar. So thanks guys.
Thank you.
Cheers.